obviously just from literally being in the ring with him, sharing the ring, working with him, there was adjustments every day. He's not someone that's just showing up and, in and be like, all right, let's, go through the motions and do the same thing. He was making adjustments. I was catching him with shots the first day we sparred. The second day we sparred, those shots were not landing. I had to figure something else out. I feel like the pressure that Spence is going to be able to put on, and because one thing is, I did check Spence's punch resistance. I can definitely say, I sent some missiles his way, and I honestly felt like he responded well. Anytime I did, land something, he wasn't like running away. He wasn't like buzzed, falling all like, he eats the shots well. It's I still saw a recovered Spence is what I think. I think his punch resistance is there, and the work ethic, and like I said, just the work that he's doing in the gym is not of someone that's clocking in, trying to show up for a check and trying to be like, oh, let's see what we can do. Like he's fully locked in. He cares about improving each and every day.
As fight night gets closer, Brian Mendoza has shared surprising inside information about Errol Spence Jr. that could influence expectations for his blockbuster showdown with Tim Tszyu. His comments provide a new perspective on what fans may witness when the two finally step into the ring.
I can't just, I'm not just using the same bag of tricks every day. I have to go home from the sparring and think about, okay, well, what am I going to do next time? You caught me with this. Those are signs of someone that is really thinking, still loves what they do. He has a passion for it. And that, along with, I feel like this time that he's had off has helped him recover. So I feel like that mixed with his punch resistance, being there, and just Spence being Spence, man. I think he's going to give him a hell of a fight.
Continuing that discussion, Jacob De Leon believed the fight would depend just as much on mindset as it would on skill. He suggested that Errol Spence Jr. was still recovering mentally from his defeat to Terrence Crawford, while Tim Tszyu had lost the confidence that came with being an undefeated champion. De Leon explained that once self-doubt begins to settle in, every fight becomes far more difficult.
I see this fight. I mean, boxing's boxing. It's a mental game. Both of these guys are still, I think, recovering mentally. Spence hasn't been in the ring in I don't know how long. Still was coming off that accident when he did fight Crawford. I don't know if he ever fully recovered from that. But even with Tszyu, man, I think there's an aura about you when you're a world champion. Like when you're untouchable. Like, I don't know, like if you saw Conor McGregor in the UFC or Kamaru Usman, there was a time where, like, they were on. You know what I mean? There was no doubt in their mind that they were gonna lose. Their hand was gonna be raised at the end. And I think once you lose that and you start doubting yourself, it's a completely different ballgame.
The boxing analyst described Errol Spence Jr. as confident and in outstanding form heading into the fight. He emphasized Brian Mendoza's warning not to overlook Spence after sharing the ring with him in sparring. The analyst also mentioned that Spence trained alongside Jermall Charlo under Ronnie Shields and entered training camp in excellent condition.
Still extremely confident in himself and his abilities. He brought in Brian Mendoza to help spar, and in that sparring session, Brian Mendoza stated, if y'all overlooking Errol Spence, y'all are drastically mistaken because he gonna show up and show out. Now, remember, Brian Mendoza himself fought Tim Tszyu, and he lost to Tim Tszyu. But, Errol Spence is bringing in world-class sparring partners. He got Jermall Charlo there. Errol Spence, is now training with well-renowned Hall of Fame trainer Ronnie Shields in Houston. Errol Spence is in complete shape.
Taking that confidence even further, the boxing analyst predicted that Tim Tszyu would enter the fight carrying frustration after promising to stop Errol Spence Jr. and deliver a bigger statement than Sebastian Fundora did against Keith Thurman. He believed that strategy would eventually work against Tszyu, leading to Spence stopping him in the 11th round.
Tim Tszyu is going to fight frustrated, right? He's talking about he's going to stop Errol Spence. He's going to do the same thing worse than Sebastian Fundora did to Keith Thurman, etc., etc. And I think Errol Spence is going to stop Tim Tszyu by the 11th round. But let me know what y'all think.
Sean Zittel expressed concern about Errol Spence Jr. heading into the fight, admitting that he still had doubts about his condition. He pointed to the changes in Spence's speech following his car accident and dental injuries, while acknowledging the reasons behind them. Zittel compared the situation to James Toney, explaining that although a fighter's speech may change, it does not always reflect what they can still do inside the ring.
I'm, respectfully, man, this is not an easy thing to talk about. I'm concerned and skeptical of Spence heading into this fight. I think something about his speech, and people say he's always had that Texas drawl. After the car accident, he had to get different teeth put in. And he said that affected his speech too. And I'm reminded of fighters like James Toney, who even when their speech wasn't quite the same at cruiserweight that it was at middleweight or super middleweight, he was still whooping ass and still beating Vasily Jirov and knocking out Evander Holyfield. But you notice the difference in his speech pattern. And with Spence, that's something I picked up on. Other people that I talk to don't seem to pick up on it the way I do. They say, hey.
Zittel believed Errol Spence Jr.'s size, jab, and relentless work rate could create serious problems for Tim Tszyu if he returned in top form. However, he ultimately favored Tszyu, arguing that he is the sharper puncher at this stage of his career. Zittel also pointed to Spence's poor balance during his loss to Terence Crawford as a concern that still cannot be ignored.
I think Spence is the bigger guy. I look at how active lead hand of Fundora, who's obviously much bigger than Spence and younger than Spence, how that really gave Tszyu problems, as did the length of Bakram. And you would think Errol Spence, if he's in good form, can take advantage of some of those things with more work rate, with a better jab, with being the bigger man, even though he's never fought at 154. But I'm leaning towards Tim Tszyu to win this fight. And again, I said it when we had Rahman on, I think he's the sharper puncher at this stage of their careers. I saw Spence getting off balance a lot in the Crawford fight. And yeah, he's fighting probably the best fighter of this generation in Terence Crawford. That'll do it sometimes. But I also just saw a fighter whose balance wasn't good on the punches he was throwing. So
in contrast, Sean Porter believed Errol Spence Jr. would look very similar to the fighter he was before facing Terence Crawford. He viewed Spence's decision to fight Tim Tszyu in Australia as a sign of his fearless mentality and believed very little had changed since his prime. Porter ultimately picked Spence to defeat Tszyu.
Who will perform the way we've seen him perform before that fight that he had with Terence Crawford. We understand what that fight was, and I think that classic Errol Spence wanting to go over to Australia to beat Tim in his own land, his own city, in Australia, his country, whatever the case may be, is one would refer to that as being ballsy, but it's Errol Spence. That's just who he is, I'm inclined to believe that Errol Spence beats Tim Tszyu because I feel like there were prior to a fight with Terence Crawford, I feel like he would have beat Tim Tszyu, and I think that, to me, I don't believe that much has changed.
Sean Porter also favored Errol Spence Jr., believing he still possessed enough talent to defeat Tim Tszyu despite being out of the ring for nearly 3 years. Porter felt that Spence's experience and complete skill set would be enough to overcome such a lengthy layoff.
B-side is more towards Tim. I'm definitely towards Errol. I just feel like Errol, even though we haven't seen him in 3 years now, I think he still has more than enough to beat Tim.
That same confidence was shared by Ronnie Shields, who remained completely convinced that Errol Spence Jr. would make a successful comeback. He dismissed claims that Spence's best years were behind him, arguing that the long break had given him enough time to recover physically. Shields also praised Spence's defensive ability and polished technique, predicting he would silence his critics once he stepped back into the ring.
Everybody's right who say he's not going to be the same. He's going to be better, so much better than he ever was. His body is well rested. It feels really good. Everything is going great. And as you saw today, his punches are fluid. He's strong, and he's throwing the punches to where I think he should throw them. And defense is looking good, so everything is going great. And hey, everybody that's thinking he don't have anything left.
Not everyone shared that opinion, however. Jeff Horn picked Tim Tszyu to win, expressing confidence that he would bounce back with an impressive victory. Horn believed Tszyu had everything needed to recover from his recent setbacks, although he admitted the final result remained uncertain.
I think Tim Tszyu for the win. Going for Tim. I hope he can get the victory and bounce back, but who knows?
Sharing his prediction, Terrence Crawford described the matchup as a very close contest and admitted that either fighter could come away with the victory. He praised both Errol Spence Jr. and Tim Tszyu for competing at the highest level while recognizing the physical, where they had both accumulated throughout their careers. Even so, Crawford leaned toward Spence, believing his complete all-around ability could make the difference.
Well, I'm not, 100% confident, I just know, the caliber of fighter that Errol is, just like I know the caliber fighter of Tim. I think both of them have taken a lot of damage in their career so far, but I just think, Errol skill-wise, just edge.
Roy Jones Jr. also described the fight as a defining moment for both Errol Spence Jr. and Tim Tszyu in their attempts to return to the top of the sport. He acknowledged Tsyu's punching power as a major advantage, but pointed out that Spence had already proven himself against elite punchers throughout his career. Because of that, Jones believed the outcome remained impossible to predict with certainty.
Tszyu in Australia, what are your thoughts there?
I think it's a really good fight too. The good thing about the fight is that they both are on the way back up. They're on the rebound, so he's a rebound guy fighting another rebound guy, which makes it kind of equal, but Tim Tszyu is a hard puncher. So we'll have to see what happens. I think Errol is used to dealing with hard punchers, but we'll see what happens.
Even with those predictions, another analyst emphasized that Tim Tszyu remained a dangerous and elite opponent, not simply a comeback fight for Errol Spence Jr., while acknowledging that Tsyu's recent defeats had slowed his momentum, particularly the stoppage loss. He maintained that those setbacks had done very little to reduce the danger Tszyu still presented inside the ring.
Tim Tszyu ain't a tune-up.
Of course.
You know what I'm saying? He's actually a very skillful fighter. He just has some losses now. Losing to Fundora, getting stopped or whatever, that hurt him a lot. And
Rolando Romero, however, saw things differently. By picking Tim Tszyu to defeat Errol Spence Jr. Romero also revealed his interest in facing Spence in the future, shifting the discussion toward a potential showdown if Spence returned to winning form.
Just in regards to the weight for this fight, Tim.
Oh yeah, 158, I can't complain.
The fight's up 58.
158. Yeah.
And get the leftovers.
Of course.
Hey, Tim.
Of course. Oh, yes,
That confidence in Tszyu was shared by Tasa Brown, who predicted he would stop Errol Spence Jr. within 9 rounds. Brown explained that his prediction was based on Tsyu's mindset rather than personal loyalty, believing he fully understood the importance of the opportunity. In his view, facing a high-profile name like Spence would inspire Tszyu to deliver one of the biggest victories of his career.
And I do believe Tim will beat Spence. I'm not saying it because he's a friend and I want him to do it. I believe that Tim Tszyu will beat Errol Spence. I believe that he'll stop him inside 9 rounds. I'm not taking nothing away from Errol, but I think Tim knows he's got, this is it. Career's on the line here. You got the big fish, a name that you wanted for a long time.
Turning to strategy, Radio Raheem emphasized that Tim Tsyu's patience could be the deciding factor in the fight. He believed Tszyu needed to remain composed and avoid allowing emotions to control his approach, warning that forcing the action could leave him open to clean counters and swing the momentum in his opponent's favor.
Tszyu on notice, this is not some ceremony fight. He's putting himself on notice that we're not taking the soft edge either. We're gonna needle this guy and tune him up and maybe make him angry enough to fight outside of his best interest. He might be baiting him into being angry because he will definitely run him into those jabs, run him into his right hands if Tszyu is too over aggressive.
Furthermore, Teofimo Lopez backed Errol Spence Jr. to come through against Tim Tszyu, describing it as one of the most exciting fights on the schedule. Lopez also praised Spence's preparation, pointing out that he appeared to be in outstanding condition heading into the highly anticipated clash.
It's a dream come true. Errol Spence, Australia, Tim Tszyu. Heck yeah, I really want to see him win. don't think so. I think Errol Spence has been truly like non-stop working out. He already looks like he's in shape now.
Likewise, another analyst favored Errol Spence Jr., believing Tim Tszyu was the ideal opponent for his comeback. He argued that Spence had used his time away from the ring to fully recover and recharge, leaving him convinced that the former champion would return with a dominant performance.
I'll say it right now, and you can take it to the bank. I'm just saying,
Take it to the
I
bank.
think Errol Spence would be too much for Tim Tszyu. I think this break is going to serve Errol Spence well. I'm so keen on that. I just think that he needed this break, and we're going to see a great version of Errol Spence.
That optimism was also shared by Tim Bradley, who believed Errol Spence Jr. was beginning a new chapter of his career rather than returning as the same fighter. Even so, Bradley felt the long layoff had given Spence enough time to recover from years of punishment, adding that he looked healthier and physically refreshed ahead of his comeback.
Oh yeah, Errol Spence. Yeah, Errol Spence is back. He back. He ain't the big fish no more. Nah, not the big fish no more, man. But you know, the one thing that I'm looking at and I analyze him and I'm looking at his ass, I'm like, his eyes do look better. They like cross, you know what I'm saying? The both ain't low like that either. You know, like I'm like, man, this mother before he fight, what the hell going on with Errol Spence, right? So, you know, his eyes look better. It looked like the rest was good for his body. You know, we when you training since you a little boy, man, early, and you train all them years, man, and having that time off, man, I'm pretty sure it done wonders for his damn body.
Building on that opinion, Bradley also picked Errol Spence Jr. to defeat Tim Tszyu. He argued that Spence's relentless pressure, disciplined technique, and high work rate would gradually wear Tszyu down. Bradley also pointed to Tsyu's reported struggles during sparring with his younger brother as another reason he expected Spence to earn a late stoppage victory.
Errol Spence, he's one of those fighters that know how to fight. He know how to fight. Errol Spence know what the hell he got to do. Errol Spence is the master of the basics. He know what the hell he got to do. Ain't nothing gonna change. He gonna let them hands go. He gonna take it to Tim Tszyu, you know. And Tim Tszyu is one of those guys, you know, stand right in front of you. He ain't one of them guys that pick up his feet and move. Nah, Tim Tszyu little brother better than him. He better than him. Tim Tszyu brother probably be whooping his sparring. Yeah, he be whooping his. I already know he do. Yeah, lefty, he be moving his head side. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I know he be whooping his in the gym for real, but they don't be talking about it. But yeah, I think Errol Spence, I think he gonna beat Tim Tszyu. He gonna knock him out. Tim Tszyu is done. He 31 and he done.
Peter Bedell viewed the matchup as a career-defining moment for both Errol Spence Jr. and Tim Tszyu. He believed Tszyu was fighting to restore his reputation after recent setbacks, while Spence was looking to prove he still belonged among the elite despite his lengthy absence. Bedell felt the result would have a significant impact on the future of both fighters' careers.
I think it's a beautiful crossroads fight. You've got two guys who seemingly are finished in the eyes of some. I mean, Tim, people think he's on the wane, and we haven't seen Errol Spence for 3 years in the ring, 1,009 days to be exact. So, look, that raises real question marks. At age 36, is the truth no longer the truth? And look, I think it's the moment of truth for Tim. I think if Tim loses this fight, it's over for me. I'd retire if I was Tim. But I think Tim can find something in himself, especially with Jeff Fenny training him. I do think there's been criticism of the new union, but I think it's the right union for this fight. And I know there's been controversy about whether it's the right call, but I think Jeff's got the right motivational tools, because I think at this stage of Tim's career, I don't really think he learns a lot technically.
Garcia shifted his attention to Errol Spence Jr., questioning how a legendary fighter would respond after surviving a horrific car crash, suffering a brutal knockout defeat, and dealing with highly publicized personal struggles outside the ring. He suggested those circumstances created a cloud of uncertainty over whether the American star was walking into a dangerous situation.
I think it's more about Errol Spence, which I know, and you know, he's from Texas, from the United States, so definitely, you know, I support his career. I've always been, you know, I've always said he's a great fighter, one of the best to do it at the welterweight division, but he's had some personal problems where, you know, he's admitted himself that he's had a drinking problem. I don't know how bad it was, but it must have been pretty bad from him accepting it and actually advising young fighters not to do it. He also had some really bad loss against Crawford and a very bad car accident. So I think the question is about him, how is he gonna come back? How is he gonna react?
Comelli finished with an honest reality check, admitting that although his loyalty remained completely with his countrymen, he would never risk his own livelihood by betting against a prime version of the American star. It left the final verdict, surrounded by uncertainty, hoping for a dominant victory while fully recognizing the dangerous threat waiting across the ring.
It's a hard one.
I can't really give an opinion.
Yeah,
on it.
I can't. I want Tim to win. I really do want him to win. You told me to bet my house on it. I'm not going to put my house on Tim. I think Spence at his best was a better fighter than Tim, but I'm 100% Team Tszyu, and I hope he destroys him.
Adding to that, Ben Damon admitted he found the matchup almost impossible to predict because too many unanswered questions remained surrounding both Spence and Tszyu. He believed the long layoff, previous setbacks, and uncertainty over each fighter's current form made it difficult to know what to expect when the opening bell rang. Instead of choosing a winner, Damon felt any prediction was nothing more than speculation until both men stepped into the ring.
I don't know what happens in that fight because I simply don't know what version of Errol Spence we're getting. I've got no idea. It could be any number of versions of a man who has been a truly phenomenal and obviously a superior and world-class fighter. But he's coming to Australia after this long break with all of the other things that have gone on through his life. And he's taking on a hungry Tim Tszyu, a man who has been beaten badly on a couple of occasions himself and who we cannot be sure what version we're going to see of him either. So this is just anyone who tries to make a prediction on this fight is guessing because nobody can possibly know. It is just one of those things where you're going to have to watch it to find out how it goes down.
With predictions divided and opinions coming from every corner of the boxing world, all attention now turns toward Errol Spence Jr. and Tim Tszyu. Only one question remains. Who will rise to the occasion when the opening bell rings? Let us know your prediction in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more boxing coverage.